Welcome to the show. It's Monday, and we're talking with Rod Mullins, who is still recovering from a long weekend in Charlotte with the NASCAR Cup Series, as the series went to Charlotte Motor Speedway for the Roval weekend. So, Rod, you were there all weekend, Xfinity race, of course, Sunday's Cup Series cutoff for the round of eight. Now, Shane Van Gisbergen, not surprisingly, probably with a road race, a road-like race, the Roval, comes away with the win because he always does these days.
Yeah, it seems that way.
It seems that way, doesn't it? We'll talk about him also, just about the, the obviously this being the cutoff race. Van Gisbergen won by 15 seconds. Man,
Yeah.
he is. Has there? I mean, he's won five straight road races. He wins them going away like this. I mean,
Mhm.
I don't know that we've ever seen anything like this dominance in one facet of NASCAR racing.
No, I agree. I don't think we've seen this kind of dominance in a long time. And I think in my own opinion, I think he is the shot, the injection that the sport has needed for a while. And he kind of brings that international flavor to it, even though he is now fully immersed in the United States and he has moved from New Zealand here to the United States. But here's the thing: he just knows how to race, how to drive. And I kind of thought that the Roval course might be a challenge for him this time around, and he went out there, and lo and behold, what he ended up doing was qualifying second. So he was there in front, and one of the first things he said when he came in for one of the press conferences is, "I want to try to stay out front, stay out of trouble, and just work my way through the traffic what I have to." And that's exactly what he did. You kind of question some things happening at certain times of taking on late tires to try to hold on and try to preserve the win, but still he knew what he was doing. It's sort of like the Hail Mary they threw the other night in the Xfinity Series race that we ended up seeing Connor Zilowich winning that race, and he took tires on late. And a lot of people were like, "What in the world's he doing at this point?" And it was a Hail Mary, was what it was. It was just a Hail Mary like you do in football. It's, we're going to give it for all we've got. We're going to go get two tires, come back out, and see what we can do. And ended up, he got back out on the track and he did well. And about the same thing happened for Shane Van Gisbergen. But we learned a lot this weekend. There was a lot of things going on at the track. Of course, the talk was the thing of the letter that had been issued, which we're going to talk about here in a little bit. But the letter that had been issued by the car owners and the teams and so forth at NASCAR's behest, if you want to call it. And then you had the race itself, and you had other questions going on, which I'm just going to go ahead and I'm just going to turn it back over to you. We had a strange press conference on Saturday, and it involved Bubba Wallace, and I'm going to let you open up for that and talk a little bit about it because it was strange. No way around it. It was a strange press conference.
Well, I'm gonna need your help because I missed what happened there. What are you talking about with Bubba now? Because we know he now on Sunday he did not end up qualifying for the round of eight, so he's eliminated. What's going on with Bubba?
Well, I think what it was, Bubba came into the media center, and Bubba was his general, kind of like sarcastic self and things, but he was smiling. But I think what got me, and I think probably several of the other reporters that were there covering this race, was the comment that he made that he and Denny Hamlin had just talked 30 minutes prior to him coming into the press conference, and that was the only time they had talked to each other the entire week since Kansas. That's what drew me for a surprise. I wasn't expecting that. This was something that happened at Kansas that I would have thought needed to be addressed probably rather quickly, at least by the first of that week or something of that sort. It didn't happen, and they didn't talk until Saturday, and it was about 30 minutes before Bubba came into the media center, and he said, he said everything this past week's been kind of somber. That's what he said. He was not excited about it. He wasn't angry or anything about it, but I still want to think to myself that, well, this is the way I'll put it. I think Denny Hamlin is responsible for knocking Bubba Wallace out of contention in the playoffs. And whether he meant to do it on purpose or whether it was just an accident and something Denny Hamlin's going to have to live with, I don't know. But you could tell that there was some, even though they said that there was some, things had been smoothed over. I don't think they were smoothed over. That's just my personal opinion. I don't think they were smoothed over at all.
Yeah, now, yeah, as you were talking and I'm listening, and then I scanned an article on this. Yeah, I'd completely missed this weekend. Yeah, I had even brought this up last week just because
Hmm.
it's so weird. Again, in NASCAR, it's different than in any other major professional sport in America, where you can be Denny Hamlin and racing yourself or competing yourself, and
Hmm.
also own one of your competitors. You own the team of one of your competitors. And so, if you're Denny Hamlin in Kansas and you're looking for a win, and you're looking to secure your own spot. Now he'd already, he was in good position for
Yeah.
the playoff advance at that stage, but you're looking to get the win, and then you got a guy in front of you that, okay, the calculus in your head as you're driving 190 miles an hour. I want to win. I would like it if he won. I would like it if we both won, and then boom, crash.
Right.
It's weird. And then if you're Bubba, you're like, what the heck?
Yeah.
He's one of my bosses, and he just ran through me. That's a dynamic that you just don't see anywhere else. And now, yeah, to hear Bubba say that this kind of cast a pall over his whole
Hmm.
week, and now he's out of the playoffs. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, this isn't good going forward for 23-11.
Yeah, I don't know how this plays out. I mean, you've got a couple of different scenarios that are happening right now over at 2311. One is Tyler Reddick doesn't know where he's going to end up because you've got this situation with him. If this court case does eventually go through and NASCAR wins it, he could very well be without a job. Bubba Wallace could very well be without a job. And Tyler Reddick had more on his mind this past weekend, I believe, than even though he had the pole, which I think was great. He ended up with a great finishing or a pole qualifying position. He still had some problems at home, and one problem is with their young baby that is not very old, and the discovery by the time that they got to Charlotte that the baby has a tumor on its heart. It is preventing blood flow, and they are possibly talking about removing one of the baby's kidneys in order for them to, try to make a go of it because one of the kidneys is damaged with the baby. I don't see how he's been able to keep himself focused this entire week and then to pull off that pole. That just amazed me. And then, he ran there up front, there off and on several different times. But, I just wonder with all these different things going on and then Bubba and the thing that happened with Denny Hamlin last week, it just makes me start wondering, is this team about to collapse? Is it going to collapse? What are we going to see? Because NASCAR kind of threw us for a loop this past week when they entered in that paperwork on Friday, and all this paperwork is essentially like, I don't know if you want to call it this. NASCAR almost in a way has, to me, it feels like they've been strong armed. The owners, the ones that signed the charter and everything and signed everything, have been made to come up with something and to, say, this is what we like about the sport. This is what we enjoy. The one that I got the feeling that was different out of the whole thing was the Joe Gibbs letter.
Yeah, you reported on that. What's what
Hmm.
tell the listeners more about. I mean, Joe Gibbs. I like the way he worded it at the beginning. I'm writing this of my own free will. That's kind of
Right.
how hostages also do their videos. Um,
Exactly.
but what was the substance of what he had to say after he revealed that he was a hostage in this situation?
I think that more than anything else, it's kind of like I established it in the article, and it was sort of like a Gettysburg Address. We're in a situation right now of where if this case goes to trial, it could be devastating for both sides, one way or the other. Whoever wins this, somebody's going to come out smelling like a rose, but there's still going to be bad feelings about it. Somebody that loses out of it is going to come out, stinking up the whole place, but they're still going to have sore feelings about it. Nobody's going to be a winner in this. It's sort of the same way I kind of looked at the Abraham Lincoln speech, the Gettysburg Address, because, we got to this situation of where nobody wanted to compromise. And, this is what we ended up, with the slavery issue and everything else. And then, boom, we go into a civil war. It's almost as if that Joe Gibbs is kind of predicting or forecasting there might be a NASCAR type civil war, or there's already one that's kind of going on. And you have the owners who see where 2311 is coming from, but they've been strong armed into this whole thing of from NASCAR. It's the only way. It's the only way that they can make it. And I think he's more than anything else in that letter, he's begging, asking both sides to sit down, talk out their differences, and try to solve this thing before they go to court and finally the trial in December.
I mean, what the bottom line on this to me is, if the owners would, I mean, I think the owners have the power here.
Hmm.
NASCAR doesn't have anything. The France family can't put 40 cars out on a track by itself
Right.
every weekend. They have to rely on these teams to independently spend all this money, and by going out and raising the money that they can spend to do what they do every weekend, and
Hmm.
all those weeks a year. And of course, also, I mean, the teams need, a NASCAR. They need an organization of some sort
Right.
to give them the ability to do the races. But I mean, I think it'd be easier for the teams to get together and form a new circuit than it would be for the France family to just put 40 cars out there and have it be interesting. Yeah, they could find 40 guys from the local racetrack, wherever
Yeah.
the local racetrack might be, and throw them out there. But is that going to, get people to watch on Fox and TNT and
Right.
Amazon? No. So, yeah, come together. But they're not going to.
Right.
They've had 2 or 3 years to do that. They're not going to come together. I like what Joe Gibbs is trying to do here, but I
Hmm.
don't see it working.
Well, and I think Joe Gibbs is using that fatherly kind of instinct, in the coaching kind of way that he used to do things when he was with the Redskins. But to me, I just think that it might be too little, too late. And NASCAR, sort of like the Tricks rabbit, he's pulling a rabbit out of his hat here, out of the whole thing, and it's hoping that that's going to happen. Something's going to happen out of it. But I'm like you, I doubt it at this point. I just really don't think it's going to be enough to bring everybody together. And you bring up the point too. NASCAR doesn't have 40 cars. Well, Brad Keselowski in his letter that he put, it was shorter than what Joe Gibbs's letter was, but he said in it, he said, I raced 6 races with the SRX series, which was Tony Stewart's series that he had a couple of years ago before it went belly up and it folded. And he said that that was a different scenario then. He said it didn't cause conflict for him or anything, but all he had to do was show up at a certain time at a night, particular in some important region of the country, close by to where he was going to be racing at that weekend, and get in a car that had already been equally prepared all the way around, each one of the cars equally prepared. And SRX was the one doing all the preparing and getting everything set. And he said, we just got in the car and we drove. Well, he brings up a very interesting point about it. That's to me right now, the drivers are sort of the ones that they're the bread and butter. They're what drives these teams and everything. And it's a little bit different than what it was even 30, 35 years ago when these drivers were more involved with the preparation of the car and being able to know what was going on with the car. Here they are, they're almost driving like this is exactly that, a celebrity challenge. And we see him week in and week out. And he didn't exactly say it was a bad experience for him, but he just went on explaining all these things of what he's involved in, that he also owns Roush Yates engines and so forth. He's got a part in it and everything, but it wasn't as much. And I haven't had a chance to go through the rest of the letters, but it wasn't as interesting as what Joe Gibbs's letter was. I'd like to read Richard Childress's. I haven't had a chance to read Richard Childress or Rick Hendricks just yet, but I'm sure Richard Childress might have some things to say that might be different toward NASCAR because he's had his run-ins with NASCAR over 50 years that he's been involved in racing, and I'm sure he sees things that NASCAR and him don't see eye to eye on things. So I'm going to have to go through the rest of those letters and kind of look at them and see what they come up with. But yeah, this Joe Gibbs letter was it was interesting, but it was also at the same time it was sort of like what we would refer to sometimes when I was helping out with band or helping out with some other things. It was sort of like a come to Jesus talk was kind of what it all boiled down to. And I'm sure, Gibbs is hoping for better things out of it, but I don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah, to use that Civil War analogy you used talking about the Gettysburg Address, we knew for years, this country knew for years going into 1860, 1861, that we were on the verge of something bad happening, and
Right.
lots of smart people were trying to get it to not happen, and it still happened. So,
Yeah.
I think that's going on here. It's just, and what also, I mean, we'll talk more about it as it develops, but we get into November and December. But if this goes to trial, which we will assume it's scheduled to start December 1st. Yeah, all these folks are going to be called to the stand, I would presume, or a number of them will be called to the stand to serve as witnesses, to give their perspectives. And yeah, this is not going to be good for
They're
NASCAR,
going to be,
Jim.
and they're going to be under oath. They're going to be
Hmm.
under oath with this thing, and they may be forced. Kessler, especially, will be he'll be pushed to expose everything he can and pull everything he can out of this. And I don't know if it's as much Denny Hamlin as much as it is, like we've talked about before, Michael Jordan that's really pushing this thing. And Michael Jordan, I believe, is the one that is probably challenging the sport to say, you're not running things to my liking, not the way that I'm used to. And I think things need to change. And if it doesn't change, they end up losing this case. I don't think we see a 2311 motorsports by next year. I think it'll kind of come apart. And I think by the move that what Denny Hamlin did with Bubba Wallace in the Kansas race, I think Denny Hamlin thinks this is probably his best, maybe last chance at pulling out a championship. And then if he's able to pull out a championship, we may be surprised and he may walk away. He may walk away out of the sport and then become team owner. But that's putting a lot of eggs in the same basket. And you're just hoping that all these eggs are not going to get broken somewhere along the line.
You know what to me the worst thing about all this is going to be, my years of covering stories of this nature that involve lawsuits.
Hmm.
It's not going to be a ruling. It's not going to be a trial on December 1st. It starts December 1st. A couple of days of people talking and then a ruling on December 4th or 5th. And then we're going to move on and go to the next part of our lives. This trial is probably going to take a while.
Hmm.
I would imagine that the presentation, especially by the plaintiffs, could be lengthy in terms of number of days. And then you're going to get a verdict. You're going to get a judge writing an opinion and then banging a gavel. I mean, there's going to be something in there
Yeah.
for whoever loses,
Hmm.
that they're going to say, there's a point of law here that was misapplied, or something, a ruling on a motion that was done incorrectly in their opinion. This isn't going to be resolved.
No.
This is going to still be hanging out there, unfortunately, in my opinion. Just, having covered these kinds of very complex cases over the years, this is going to play into next season. It might play in, the next NASCAR season. It might play into 2027.
Yeah.
So, and as a result, we're going to, but it's going to be after all the testimony and all the revelations that are going to come, that it's going to be, it's going to be uncomfortable to say the least in the garage.
Yeah. The ramifications are going to be huge. I mean, that's all you can say about it. There are going to be some terrible, terrible hurt feelings about all this stuff. Um, it's going to go from driver to car owner, maybe even down to the teams. down through the teams itself and the pit crews and so forth. This is going to have lasting ramifications any way you look at it, one way or another, both instantly and over time.
All right, let's get back to the race. You were
Okay.
there all this past weekend on Sunday's race. I'll be specific because you were there for the
Right.
Xfinity Series as well. Okay, so a while ago you talked about a Hail Mary move regarding something else unrelated to this race. But with this race, okay, so Van Gisbergen, he was already out of the playoffs. He wins
Mm-hmm.
his fifth straight road race of the season. First time that we've had that many one in a row since Jeff Gordon back in the 90s. So that's been a while.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so there were a lot of guys trying to get themselves in position to get to the round of eight. Ross Chastain could have made a move that you could characterize as a Hail Mary. It
Yeah.
didn't work, but Hail
Right.
Marys often don't work.
Uh, that still amazed me what he tried to. It was almost like a Martinsville-esque sort of move, even though he and Denny Hamlin collided. But he was hoping more than anything else he could finish ahead of Joey Logano. But when the bump took place and both of them got turned around, Ross Chastain said the only thing that he could think about was just jamming it in reverse and going across the start finish line as fast as he could. But Logano had beat him, and I mean that was the thing about it. But what else happened? I think also at the same time with Chastain, there were a lot of other things that kind of took place as well. Chastain got penalized on for speeding on pit road on lap 87 of 109. That's down close, almost to the end of the race. And then he, losing too many spots, of course, in the final two laps to hold off Joey Logano. But he was very upset about it, and he just said Justin Marks had hired him to carry this number one car and drive it, be a leader, and it just completely unraveled our day. We definitely had the speed on the last lap. Missed turn 7. I slid the rear tires and let the 11 go by, but it's totally unacceptable. Just completely unacceptable is all he could say. And I think what was funny yesterday, we were in the media center, and Dale Jarrett was being interviewed there at the end of the race, and he made the comment they had the camera on Denny Hamlin and on Ross Chastain. And he said, I'd like to be a bird in on that conversation and find out what's being said between these two right now, because these two kind of don't have any love lost between each other. But, Denny Hamlin was patting him on the back, and talking to him and said, he would have done the same thing. Does that kind of sound like Kansas last week? He would have done the same thing. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, like you said, he's already in the chase, the playoffs and stuff. So I mean, hey, I give or take. I mean, Chastain, he admits it. He lost it. And Logano is one of these that just absolutely lives by the seat of his pants, because it looked like there for a while Logano was not going to make it. And that would have been a big fallback from last year and winning the Cup championship and then not making the playoffs this year. And all it took was just some mistakes and then the bump and everything else, and Logano's in there. And when Logano's there on the pit road and he starts with an interview, the fans start booing almost immediately. And I think he just kind of relished that. He said, hey, is that for me? Is that what they're doing, booing for me or something? So, yeah, it's this whole field is unique in of itself, that we've got some people in there that technically shouldn't be in there. And Joey Logano's one of them. That's the surprise out of it. I think the other thing is Kyle Larson. I didn't know this until yesterday as well. Kyle Larson is on a 19 race winless streak. He hasn't won in 19 races. And then here he is trying to mix it up with Shane Van Gisbergen. And then I kind of thought, okay, this may not be a very good move for Kyle Larson's part. I mean, to try to go in there. Shane Van Gisbergen he was praiseworthy. He said, he raced me. The mate raced me and did all this, and he did exactly what I would have been doing and so forth. But I think almost in a way, Kyle Larson was like, you're on our terms. Here, let's bump and let's hit a little bit and let's see what you're made of. Shane Van Gisbergen held the line. He did not let him get by and stuff. And finally, it was just he didn't have enough tires Larson didn't, to be able to stick in there and be able to push him out of the way and do what he needed to do. And but he still made the playoffs as well. He had some good races down the season, and that's what he's been in there for.
We were talking a couple months ago that the whole field was hoping that Van Gisbergen wouldn't still be alive in the round of
Right.
12 because he was going to win the Roval. He
This is what
did.
they call ringers. Now, this is exactly what they call a ringer. And I don't want to hear anybody say it from the get go and say, well, when they go to these road courses, look what they've pulled out. Boris said they pull out all these other road racers that have been so effective, in their particular sport, but they can't compete in NASCAR. You can't say that now to Shane Van Gisbergen. I mean, with that top 10 at Kansas, then the win this week and everything, that team's getting dialed in, and I think they're going to be ready by the time 2026 rolls around.
Yeah, watch out for that guy once he, capitalizes on more of those super speedway finishes, like you said
Mhm.
last weekend. And once he gets start getting points there, he's going to be dangerous going down the line. So that's going to be
Yeah.
fun to see. Let's see. We talked about. Let's see. So the rest of the field, it's Blaney and Elliott. They'd already won races in the round of 12. Kyle Larson, Christopher Bell, William Byron, Chase Briscoe, Denny Hamlin, Joe Logano made it by 4 points. So
Yep.
he skin of his teeth. He got through. Chastain, Tyler Reddick, Bubba Wallace, Austin Cindric were eliminated yesterday. So they're on the outside looking in. You talked about Bubba. I mean, you have to think that him spending his whole week in a mental funk,
Hmm.
that doesn't help you when you're trying to get
No.
back out there. You can't just turn it on and off. And obviously he finished 15th. It was respectable yesterday, but you got to think that finish in Kansas it kind of played through the week for him as well.
Yeah, it hurt. It hurt any way you describe it, and I think the actions speak louder than the words. And by not having any discussion until 30 minutes before he walks into the press conference, that tells me oodles that there's something wrong. And he says, everything's smoothed over, everything's all right, but just for some reason, he just did not look like he was the Bubba Wallace that I've seen in the media center sometimes, and kind of being the. And I'm not saying he's a braggart by any means, but he likes to go out there and he likes to say, "Well, this is what we've got to do, and we're going to do this," and so forth. That wasn't the case. It was a thing of, how do you get yourself back into this race? How do you get yourself back into this? And you're on the verge of being in the playoffs, and you've got to hope everything holds together. It's sort of like, and seriously, sort of like the conversation that I happened to just kind of walk into, of all things, in the media center on Saturday, right before qualifying for the Cup race. Christopher Bell's in there, and he's in there and stuff, and washing his hands and everything. And I looked over at him and I said, "Mr. Bell," I said, "so what do you think your chances are this weekend?" He said, "I don't really know." He said, "We're going to find out here in just a few minutes when we go out here and qualify." But he says, "I don't really know." And part of that had to deal with the tire. They didn't know what this tire was going to do because it was going to cool off as it went on. It should have done well, and it did do well there in the final stages of the race. But they had a hotter surface when they started this race out, and they were kind of blistering these tires a little bit. And so they had to watch for that. They had to be able to watch for all these other things, and it was a free for all. That's what it was. And Christopher Bell, I think, held in there great. I think he did really well with what he had, but there was not going to be anybody who's going to hold a candle close to Shane Van Gisbergen at all.
So the series moves to Vegas for the first race in the round of eight this weekend on Sunday. We got three races in this round. It finishes up in Martinsville. It's coming back to Virginia. There's Talladega in between on the 19th. So we're getting close. What do you think we can look forward to in Vegas this weekend?
Well, I do know that Catherine Legg is coming back. She's going to be racing the Cup race. This is the first time in a couple of months that she's been racing, but she is used to that track. She has raced at Las Vegas before, so she's ready to go. Looking forward to seeing her back in the lineup. For the rest of these drivers, it's survive. Survive right now and stay out in front, and at least somebody try to go and punch their ticket into that round of four. That's what they're going to have to do right now. They're going to have to go and somebody's going to have to get the upper hand and the upper advantage to be able to get into that and punch that ticket, because you're going to have, as we start getting down to, the finals, you're going to have this one, Las Vegas, then you're going to have Talladega. Talladega is the one that's going to be the one that's going to tear these cars apart one way or another. We've not seen a true big one at Talladega, a huge race. Everybody's going to be going for it. At Las Vegas, it's more of like, what we saw at Charlotte. There on the regular track, not on the Roval, but it'll be everybody trying to fight for position, hold for position. And, you've got some of these teams that they've not quit, even though they're out of the playoffs. Some of these teams are building for next year. So that's what some of them are going to be doing. So, it's kind of a question mark right now, really, who we'll see at the front of the pack. I always have to mention something about it. You got to hope that Kyle Busch is going to break out of his funk, what he was into. Sunday, Andrew had went out, my son had went out and was taking pictures, and he got a beautiful shot of Kyle Busch's car coming through there on the track, and just moments after that, after he snapped that picture, he hits the wall. Boom, he's out of the race. He's gone for the race. And so, he had a DNF. He didn't finish the race whatsoever. And you just don't know what's going to happen with these kind of races. And then Austin Cindric, he was in the playoffs, had a chance to be in the playoffs. He gets knocked out from Carson Hocevar, locking his brakes up and then going into the 2 car, and then hits him square in the front, breaking the front end suspension out of it, and his day was done. So you just don't know what's going to happen at some of these racetracks. Remember, I think it was several years ago, Kevin Harvick, even though he hadn't won a race, but he was still trying to stay in there and be relevant out of this whole thing. Car catches fire after having a great run. Car catches fire because of all the rubber buildup in the car, and that pretty much just shot him there. So we have yet to find out what's going to be thrown at these drivers come Las Vegas, and especially come Talladega. Martinsville is just going to be a fight to the very finish, right there at the very end. It's going to be slamming against each other. It's going to be the way that Saturday nights used to be with stock car racing. They're going to be beating each other almost to the point of senseless, because they're going to want these positions, is what they're going to want. So, yeah, we've got a lot of exciting racing action still yet to come before this season winds up at Phoenix at the end of the season.
I like the way the scheduling has been, especially this year. I
Mm-hmm.
guess maybe it's been this way for the last few years, but I like that the playoff elimination races, so to speak, to get from 16 to 12, 12 to 8, 8 to 4. One's at Bristol, so on a short track
Mm-hmm.
where there's a lot of beating and banging. Then there's the Roval in between, where it's a unique race, and because the average winning speed was like 80 miles an hour. So I mean,
Yep.
obviously everybody's gonna be closer there too, for the most part, bunched up. And then you finish back up this next round in Martinsville, another short track. So
Yep.
it's really a test of the way they lay all three of the races in these first 3 rounds
Mm-hmm.
out are a good test of overall ability. But then you get down to that elimination race, and it's the beating and banging race.
Yeah, that's what it's going to be, and we'll see that, and we'll probably see even more of it, of the four that are going to make it when they get to Phoenix on a almost flat track. It's got a little bit of banking, nowhere near as what Martinsville has, but it's a flat track, and there's a lot of scooting around out there in the desert with that race. So we have yet to see what's going to be pulled out of the hat here before it's over with these races coming up.
Oh, you were talking as we're wrapping up here. You were talking about the uncertainty because like you could be snapping a picture, a great picture, 1 second, and the guy's in the wall the next second. It
Yep.
reminds me we're at the part of the football season where your favorite team can have one guy like land wrong on his foot or something, and then your whole season changes because of that. It's
Yep.
very similar to NASCAR. I mean, yeah,
Yep.
you're all of a sudden somebody else hits their brakes hard and you're in the wall and your season's over. So. I mean, football fans and NASCAR fans can commiserate with how fickle their sports can be in that respect.
Yeah, I think about that, and then I'm thinking about my team that I like, Tampa Bay, right now, and Tampa Bay has got just a bunch of people that's hurt, and a lot of them are the receivers. Godwin's hurt, Evans is hurt, and then the rookie sensation. He's been the one that has stepped up and helped this Buccaneer team go to 4-1, even though they got beat by the Eagles here last week. It was a close game out in Seattle, but this is exactly the same kind of scenario we're looking at with NASCAR. If a tire doesn't go on right in the pits and it's a longer than normal pit stop, that could hurt your chances getting back out on the track, going a lap down at one of these tracks, especially with a Martinsville or especially with a Las Vegas. Something like that happens. Talladega, you're trying to go and you're trying to. Here's where the question mark is going to be: is Team Toyota and Team Chevrolet and Team Ford, who's going to remain committed to one another? Denny Hamlin, all the Toyotas going to stick together? Are they going to support Hamlin as he tries to go through this? Are they going to support Bell? Is Hamlin going to get mad at Bell for, pushing? Briscoe is still in this mix also with that team. It's anybody's guess as we start going down the line. The thing that we least expect is what's normally going to happen, and it'll happen when we least expect it. I mean, that's the way it is.
I follow college football more closely than the NFL, and then my team, Virginia, number 19 in the country this
Yep.
week, after a not very impressive pretty win or anything at Louisville. But so I'll use NASCAR analogies here to describe that win. They got two defensive touchdowns, which feels like they got one lucky dog pass.
Hmm.
Um, then somehow the game got to overtime. It's kind of like, okay, so Louisville's in the lead, coasting to the checkered flag, they think, but nope, there's a wreck behind, and so we're gonna have to go to overtime. And boy, Louisville, I mean, got the ball first and had a chance to score, ended up kicking a field goal. Virginia had their quarterback get knocked out in overtime, and they still won. So everything that
Wow.
could have gone wrong, and they still won the game. So
Yeah.
hey, it's not all bad news. Sometimes the breaks go your way.
Well,
And you need that to happen too if you're going to win either a football championship or a NASCAR championship. Sometimes you need to get lucky too.
the longer the season goes on, either you find out who's going to be like cream and rise to the top in the coffee, or who's going to sink down to the very bottom and then mess up the whole taste of the little cup of coffee. That's what we're going to find out.
That's
And
right.
some of these teams are going to fall to the bottom, and they're just going to say, ah. Wait till next year is what they're going to end up being like. And then some of them are going to rise to the top. And, again, we could see another ringer win take place at Las Vegas. We could see it at Talladega. We might even see it at Martinsville. How does it play out for the rest of these teams? That's the reason why some of these drivers need to play nice and know who their friends are or who their friends might not be, because they're going to have to mind their p's and q's as they go down the stretch.
Well, you think you know who your friends are on the track, and then your team owner runs you down. So, as
Oh,
we,
yeah.
I don't know if you have any friends out there anymore. If Bubba Wallace is going to say that anyway.
Yeah.
Rod, as always, thank you for your time and your insight, and thanks for making the trip down to Charlotte. And we look forward to talking to you next week.
Appreciate it, Chris. Thanks.